everybody is quite familiar with the higher self, but then there is the planetary self. And this is where we need a bit more explanation. And the higher self is an individualized self, but the planetary self, so the consciousness has grown, has expanded to connect with the planetary consciousness, with the whole Mother Earth. So in terms of self-realization, this is where your self-realization is at, and to feel that connectedness with other people, with animals, with nature, with the Mother Earth, to be connected, and that is also called oneness. So the consciousness of oneness. It is a very beautiful state of consciousness because we feel a lot of connection and a lot of oneness. And this is where majority of the spiritual people are within their higher self or their planetary self. So basically in 500s, right at the beginning of the self-realization. So majority of the spiritual students, when they awaken spiritually, they basically just stepped into spirituality. So there is a common misinformation that as soon as they awaken spiritually, they think this is the end. You know, their journey has kind of finished. So they believe they found a higher self and they open love, and that's the end of everything. And many people, they mature into that place, into this consciousness of love and oneness. And that is an individualized consciousness, which is the higher self or the planetary self. So I'm sure you have met many people who are in that state of consciousness. However, when we come to the teachings of presence, non-duality and enlightenment, suddenly the new doors open. We come to know that there is a lot more to spirituality and to the self-knowledge, self-realization. So presence is one of the key doors which only very few can open, and that in terms of percentages, that would be only 0.0001% of population. It is only for very few advanced spiritual people. Any questions, Lee? Mm-hmm. I've seen you patiently waiting.
Actually, now I have a question about what you just said. Could it be possible that, because in the early 600s, one might not, if the person doesn't have group, for example, to really guide exactly where one is at, could it be possible that they could be in 600s and not realizing it, since it's so kind of, one cannot really grasp it at first?
Not really, because 600s, in terms of self-realization, the person needs to do quite a lot of work to mature into 600 realization. So to open consciousness, however, into 600s, it is much easier, but still requires a certain transmission and certain maturity. So to come to the realization of 600s, which is presence, and that in itself says realization of presence, and that is beyond the unconditional love, beyond the inner wisdom. So this is why out of literally 100 million spiritual students, only a few thousand actually realize presence and non-duality, because that requires a lot of work and a lot of maturity and a lot of change of perception. So for that to open spontaneously, it would be just extremely rare cases.
Since there's the difference between what we call live view and the self-realization, I assume we're talking self-realization in your terms here.
Yes, yes. Okay. Life experience is another dimension where the physical life materializes according to your self-realized state, and that always requires time, because the third dimensional life is very slow in terms of vibrations, so it takes quite a long time to manifest what is within you.
Does that mean that the self-realization happens in higher dimensions? So it has already happened?
The self-realization is who you are, and then how life reflects back to you. Life needs time. The third dimension needs time to reflect back to you who you are. So for example, if you are living in unconditional love, if you have opened your heart to unconditional love, there is that openness, there is that realization of unconditional love. But then the law of attraction needs to start working so that actually you start meeting other people who are in unconditional love, so that you start having a relationship which is based on unconditional love, and many other life circumstances which would reflect that vibration back to you. So life experience is a reflection of your inner self. But once you reach 1000, this is where everything dissolves back into the same. So the discrepancies are as you come along the path. Because you might open in many different ways. You might open your heart, you might open your mind, you might open your consciousness, you might receive a realization, or your physical body will raise your vibration, the Kundalini and nervous system. But once you come to the 1000 Absolute Self, this is where everything comes back into the same. So, coming into presence and non-duality is very rare, but that happens with the grace and guidance, with the spiritual teachers, and that requires quite a lot of guidance. So that is what is called becoming a spiritual adult, maturing into spiritual adulthood. So awakening into the higher self is a spiritual childhood. And then opening into unconditional love, opening into oneness is a spiritual teenagehood. And stepping into presence and non-duality is already becoming like a young adult, spiritually speaking. And then maturing into enlightenment is already becoming spiritually mature adult. And stepping into 1000 pure consciousness is beyond age. So 1000, the Absolute Self, is beyond everything. It is beyond consciousness, it is beyond mind, it is beyond soul, it is beyond life, it is beyond universe. 1000 is the source from which this universe was created, the source which sustains this universe, the source from which all the trillions or quadrillions of souls were created, and planets and galaxies and stars. So stepping into the Absolute Self is beyond everything. It is beyond everything, and therefore it is everything. So it is a complete and absolute transcendence of anything that is manifested in any dimension. It is beyond the 12th dimension. So even here you can see in the vortex, the 12th dimension is at the top, but the Absolute Self is above that. Because 12 dimensions exist in this universe. In other universes, there can be more. So, stepping into the self-realization, it is important to know where you're going. It is important to know where you are now and where you're going. Also to reflect back onto the past and to integrate the past as well. So this is why you can see that somebody who is in the spiritual childhood, which is the unconditional love, the higher self, they are acting as the individual higher self, as the individual soul. But how many souls are there in the universe? Does anybody know? It's uncountable. More than trillions, more than quadrillions, with so many planets and stars and galaxies. Only on this tiny planet, 7 billion human souls, but then animals and nature spirits and even trees and flowers have a soul. So even here we have billions and billions of souls. So this is why being in the spiritual childhood, in the higher self, it is being like a tiny speck in the universe. It is very empowering because suddenly you step out of the physical body and you realize that you are not the physical body, you are the higher self, which is eternal, which doesn't die. So literally you can live as many lifetimes as you want. So that is a huge empowerment. But in the eyes of God, a higher self is only a speck of dust in the universe. So then stepping up into the planetary self is already a big step, because your consciousness and your energy field expands to encompass the whole planet Earth, you suddenly merge with the whole planetary consciousness. So you merge to connect, to be one with all the planets and all the people, 7-8 billion people nearly, and all the animals and everybody who is living on this planet Earth. So you see how huge the growth is from the higher self to the planetary self. The planet, the Mother Earth is like a home for all the people, for all the higher selves, for all these souls, all the animals and nature. The next step is realizing, expanding yourself into the galactic self, cosmic self. So there you come to maybe start experiencing in your meditations the other stars, connections with other planets, with other stars. The galactic connections, cosmic experiences, or on the other hand, realization of presence as the energy field which encompasses everything. The whole planet Earth is within the energy field of presence. So presence is a huge energy field which literally encompasses the whole galaxy. So when you meditate and when you reflect on your presence, try to see into the distance. How big is your energy field? How far can you see your energy field? And you will see that there is no limit. It just goes on and on and on, and wherever you put your attention, it just carries on. It is like looking at the night sky, and if you look at the moon only, let's say you look only focus on the moon, that's what you're gonna see. But the presence is shifting your attention from looking at the moon into looking at the empty space in which the moon and all the stars are. It's huge, isn't it? So presence is huge, enormous. And the moon and the sun and all the stars are in presence, in that space. So this is why it's called cosmic consciousness, galactic consciousness. Because it is enormous. Your consciousness expands enormously. And then obviously the further progression is the universe. So the further you look, the more you will see. The more you deepen into presence, the more it will expand, and your consciousness will expand and grow to encompass the whole universe. Connecting, like imagine that your mind is like a web which connects more and more and more, like an internet, yes? It connects more and more and more. So it's like a web which connects from this planet Earth into all the stars, into the galaxy, and into all other galaxies, and the whole universe is connected. So everything is connected. Everything is one. And as we grow towards the universal consciousness, on the way we step into the non-duality, realization of non-duality. So this realization is stepping beyond the nature of duality, stepping beyond the dual nature of energies, and by that I mean all energies in the whole universe. So stepping beyond, in the spiritual teachings, mainly in the 500s, which is transmute fear with love, focus on love. But in non-duality, you transcend fear and love. You transcend duality. You transcend the black and white. You transcend the sadness and happiness. You transcend any kind of emotions, any kind of feelings, any kind of energies, anything that comes to you, anything that is possible to experience, you transcend that. Yes?
Yeah, just a question, but maybe everybody is kind of individual on this kind of particular phase. But just the question that just arose is, so is it like why, for example, in my case, like in that period of time, I experienced like a lot of energy, like emotions, like very strongly in that period of time. And is it because of then, like stepping out of that duality, and it's like they're all like rising?
Yeah, exactly, so yes.
Becomes very condensed.
Exactly. So, yes. So when you are in the oneness consciousness, and the beginning of presence consciousness, you start stepping out of duality. So what is the opposite of oneness? It is separation. So you start transcending all fundamental dual energies. So in the spiritual childhood, you learn and you integrate the easy things. The love, the light, the joy, the flowers, all the beautiful things to give you confidence, to give you strength, to increase your inner light, to increase your spiritual capacity. It's like a spiritual honeymoon, the spiritual childhood. Everything is rosy and beautiful. Then, stepping into presence and non-duality, you have to cleanse your consciousness from the bottom. So any fear which you left locked and behind, and you completely kind of forgot about it, you need to clean it from the bottom. Any sense of separation, any sense of individuality, any sense of me, mine, or myself, or any kind of structural mind, fundamental grounds, they have to be cleansed away from the bottom. And this is why the 600s, the presence, non-duality can be tough, but this is why you become adult. Because you face reality. You face your full self. So you start cleansing out from the bottom. And as that happens, then your fundamental vibration starts rising up. So you start to fundamentally, permanently transcend the karma, the cycles of reincarnation, the conditionings of the mind. Because even in 500s, people are still so conditioned. One moment they feel love, the other moment there is huge anger and something else, so it's very unstable. So in 600s, you cleanse your consciousness from the bottom. You clean your soul from the bottom. And that eternally rises you up. that rises you up beyond any dimensions. So that job, once it's done, that's it, you know? Yes.
The 670,
Uh-huh.
is that where the mind goes completely silent? Or is that gradually? When is it like completely silent?
Complete, absolute silence is 1000.
Okay, but like silent for the most part.
Silent for the most part is, yes, stepping into 600, 670.
Okay. So it is gradual.
It is gradual, yes. As you mature more and more, then you start recognizing that what is the mind, how the mind is functioning. The mind is the illusion. So the mind touches you less and less and less. And therefore the mind becomes more and more silent, and there is more and more space. Unless you are on a spiritual highway into the 1000, into enlightenment, then through a lot of spiritual practice, there will be new things rising. So by doing a lot of spiritual work, there will be always new things rising, but you are rising always. So it is a spiritual highway, but then as you start approaching 800s, 900s, 1000, then everything starts to slow down again. And being much more luminous, blissful every single moment.
What happens between 670 and 700? What's like the big thing there?
It is the realization of non-duality, and actually thousands of people get stuck there as well.
In 6?
Yes, in 670.
Not a bad place to get stuck though.
It's a good place to get stuck in. But speaking about presence, there is only about 5,000 people on the planet today. In non-duality, there is around 1,000 plus minus out of those 5,000, generally speaking, yes. So you see that majority gets remain there. Only few, probably even less than 1,000, actually make it to non-duality, full non-dual realization. And between 670, non-duality, and 1700, there's also quite a big difference. Because in non-duality, you experience the realization of no self. So literally you have the realization that there is no you, and that's where you're arriving very fast. The realization that there is no you, there is no doer. So there is no such person as yourself. So you realize that, and that you realize that everything is just happening. But in that state of non-duality, the problem is the world. The world. The outer reality. Because you realize that there is no you, but there is everybody else. And while you in yourself have no problem, but everybody else triggers you a lot, creates you a lot of problem. So this is why when I was there, I said, no way, I'm not staying there, I have to move on. Because even though I myself had a complete peace, but still reality caused a lot of problems. as in other people, in life circumstances, in how things are manifesting. But there are some extreme cases of some spiritual teachers where they step into that no self and they kind of defend it and they negate everybody else. But in that case, either they're very they can have very strong personalities. So there are a few teachers like U.G. Krishnamurti or just a few others who are relatively known, but they would have very strong and sometimes bad attitudes towards other people. So they would shout at people and you're this, you're that, and there's nothing, and like it's a very like this and that and nothing, you know, this kind of language. So they feel very strong within themselves, they have this realization that it's not them, but they still negate others. And they either mature and get stuck into it, and this becomes their teaching, or they feel in their heart that that's something not right there, and they move on further into the further enlightenment. Would you like to ask, or no? So stepping into 700s, this is where you open up, there's a greater expansion. So that can happen through your mind or through your heart. In my case, it was at first through the mind, a realization of enlightenment with the mind. And that gave me so much more, well, cosmically more freedom in the mind. Because suddenly there is neither me and going beyond others as well in terms of the mental perception. And the same can happen with the heart. So you can, in my case, I went into 800s and through the heart, but it is also possible way around that at first person opens up in the heart and then they have to catch up with the mind. Yes.
So, do you think that there's an easier path to open to the heart than to the mind?
In the absolute self, there is no mind and heart.
No, speaking from 670 to 700 to like...
So which one is easier?
Yeah, like is there any like a difference when if one opens up through the heart or if one breaks like up, opens up through the mind? Like do you see if there's any difference there?
The difference is your opening into enlightenment. So whether you arrive there through your heart or through the mind's realization, whether one way or the other way you arrive there.
Yes, but do you think through the heart would be easier than the mind? For example, in my case,
yes.
When I was working with my heart, because I'm connected more to my heart,
yes.
it has kind of been more easier
yes.
for me, although the heart feels its own pains and whatever.
Yes, yes.
And whenever I was dealing with my mind,
yes.
it has been so difficult.
Yes. And that is because you are you. So you are a woman and you are very heart-based. So your way, your easiest way was through the heart. In my case, I was very analytical and insightful, and for me it was easier through the mind. But then progressing forward, I had to also bring my heart into enlightenment as well. So, but in my case, I never really struggled so much with my heart either. So even through the heart, it was quite, it wasn't that difficult. Mainly because I was quite excited and very spiritually strong, and I didn't bother whether it's mind or heart or this or that, just knock down everything and get to the absolute self. So, but generally speaking, it depends on you, which way is easier for you. So it is individual, basically. But at the end of the day, both need to meet, or they need to be balanced. Because if your heart is very, very open, but the mind is very struggling, then it will cause problems. The mind will rise and the problems will arise. So it's good to go, step by step and work simultaneously on both. This is why in the chart we do the measurement of consciousness, soul, heart, mind, body, and the general self-realization. And this is how you can see where you're progressing on which level. So stepping into the enlightenment is hugely liberating. The expansion is enormous. And whether your mind opens up to become the universal mind, or your heart opens up to become the universal heart. And then in 800s, is about stepping into the foundation of the universe. So 700s you can imagine is the universe, yes? But 800s is the foundation of the universe, like the dark matter of the universe, which is actually 80% of the whole universe. So you go deeper and deeper, and that's why it's called the great unknown, because you step deeper into the universe, into the dark matter of the universe, into the great unknown. And there, as you progress into 850, into 870, you open up the pure love, divine union, the universal union of love, which is behind that great unknown. Yes.
So do you continue realizing that it's illusion upon illusion upon illusion, even as enlightened?
To realize it's an illusion, it's enough to step into non-duality. To realize that the mind is not really real. It's just the energy passing by. So
that there's no further step where you're going to realize, new illusion.
No, you transcend the illusion once you transcend duality. And then you deepen and deepen into the realization. So the correct way of seeing it, yes, I'm telling you the correct way of seeing it. So as you transcend duality, then you transcend the duality and the mind. And then you deepen further, and then you detach the mind further. So in your words, you can say that, yes, you see, even this and this and this is an illusion. So that might be that way, or you simply see it as you're simply deepening and ripening more and more and more. Because once you realize that the whole mind is an illusion and anything you believe in is actually an illusion, so that's kind of it, isn't it? How far can you go with it? But then you deepen into the actual reality. So you detach anything which is not real and you mature more into that which is real. Yes? So it's a fun journey, isn't it?
No.
No.
Not for me, was it?
For me too, it wasn't.
Not at
It's
all.
not a fun journey, my dear.
It was just suffering for you. Madness.
And the more you see that, the more it hits you harder, you know?
But let me ask you, is it worth it?
Yes.
Yes.
Here you go.
Absolutely. No. There's no question.
As soon as you see it, you never go back.
Yes.
You never go back.
I can't imagine going back to living my life the way I did before meditation and thinking of things the way I do now. Maybe there is attachment to that as well, but I can't imagine going about my life and thinking about my angels and my guides and why this and that happened.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. What's that? What did I do wrong? What should I do now?
Speaking of your knowing of what you believe to be your inner self, sorry, not your inner self, the how you are inside is reflected on the outside, right? So what does it mean when I'm late? When I, for instance, not in sync with the weather, I think it's going to be a nice day, and it's a day, a bad day. Is that just minuscule, or is it...
Well, there is always invitation. So what life brings you is an invitation to look deeper. And an invitation to get over that cycle. So if there is any particular situation in your life which is difficult, you have to get over with it and find a way to transcend it. So that's how you polish your bottoms. It's a bum polishing process. But the beauty is that when you polish your bottoms, your bum, which is actually the Kundalini polishment, so when you polish your bottom, you fundamentally go higher. So let's say that you still have some cycles or energies in 500s, or in 400s, in 500s, or in 600s. And as you polish these bottoms of these particular learning cycles that are within these levels of consciousness, as you polish them, you fundamentally shift higher. So that means that life doesn't need anymore to give you the same lesson. So you fundamentally get higher. So this is why it is important to work on your tops and also on your bottoms. You go high to the tops, but then you see, oh, what bottoms do I have? What are the key difficulties, the key pains that I have? And how can I go beyond them? And once you do, then there is a huge relief. It's never gonna come back the same again. So in the previous cycles, things which would have hurt me before, let's say 5 years ago, or 3 years ago, 2 years ago, now through the polishment which happened throughout, now they are gifts. These negative seemingly situations can be shifted as gifts. So that becomes a very also beautiful practice of polishing the bottoms. And I quite enjoyed for quite a lot of period of time to polish my bottoms, because I realized it's gonna be better permanently after that. So let me just dig into that. Let me find all my bottoms, let me work on all of them, and I'm permanently gonna be much better. Probably you're thinking, oh my gosh, how much work there is to go, yes. Yes, but that's where you need to develop patience. Question?
Yes, actually.
Uh-huh.
You know how you say you see it as a gift. The other thing that came to my mind was, how can I be so ungrateful when God has given me so much? But that was putting myself in shame.
The first part was correct, and the second part was self-doubt. Because your heart says, God is giving me so much, I should be grateful. And then the mind says, but isn't that shame? You know, the self-doubt, like, the self-judgment and self-doubt is your bottom. That's what came to you right now. Because as soon as a beautiful thing rises, a beautiful connection with your heart, then the mind instantly judges it or doubts it. So you need to trust your feeling, trust what comes to you, trust the beauty which arises, and the judgment and doubt of that beauty that you need to release. And then the beauty will become even more beautiful, and the mind will become less judgmental and doubtful. So coming to 900s is already stepping into the Absolute Self, but then just seeing the seed, the root of the mind, and polishing that root, that primordial problem, we could say. And 1000 is when that primordial problem goes away and only the pure consciousness itself remains.